What is up, my friends? How are we this Thursday night's late night agenda? As always, it's a pleasure to be here with you. We have an awful lot to get through tonight, don't we? We're going to be speaking about the game against Aston Villa coming up on Saturday. We're going to be talking about transfer links, mad and maybe realistic. We're going to talk a little bit about Real Madrid and their levels of, entitlement. We'll also talk about, I'm going to have my say about the Echo again, because I don't know what the hell they do be looking at, so I'm going to have my say in what they've been writing. We're going to talk about the myth behind Liverpool's injury crisis, because it is a myth. We're going to take you through some other numbers as well that kind of undermine why Arne is full of it lately and why he's talking absolute waffle. So we'll do that. We'll, of course, answer any questions you have, and we'll do our best to get through all the topics that you'd like to discuss. One comment really caught my eye before we started tonight, and as always, I tell you guys, I sit here for about 5 minutes all the time and have a little read on how people are feeling before we start to get a flavour of what to expect when we go live. But I want to just call out one comment, not call out, it's actually, I want to just discuss one comment, and it's from James Bond, not that one, not the real one, at least I hope not. I could be in trouble if it is. He said, "Craig, I just want to say thank you for not putting videos behind a paywall." So this is something, mate, that I promised early in our journey here on Anfield Agenda. I have no judgment against anybody who has a fan channel, a podcast, and goes behind a paywall. Absolutely no judgment for me whatsoever, each to their own. But I was lucky and unlucky in a way. So I was lucky in that I came to YouTube after the fan channel thing had kind of launched, and I could sit back, observe and see what people have done well and what people have done wrong and try to learn from it. One thing very quickly stuck in my mind as I started this journey: there will come a point where we have to make that decision. Do we put up a paywall, try to secure your revenue and limit potentially your growth? And I looked at it a different way. I looked at the likes of the United Stand. I looked at the likes of AFTV, and although maybe they have had some degrees of paywalls over the years, more often than not, particularly with the United Stand, I backed myself to grow the channel to the point where the revenue became self-sufficient and we didn't need the paywalls. It's a far riskier venture because you're not guaranteed anything, in my opinion, but it's one that I felt right about. And here's why. Fan content is not me giving you expertise. I'm not on here having, developed a coaching philosophy or going through and becoming a journalist. I'm a fan, first and foremost. And it's important to me that our content is accessible to as many people as possible, because we want as many opinions and views as possible. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to say that, mate, because it is a promise we made early doors here on the channel, and it's one that we intend to keep, despite the obvious financial gains that you can have from going the other direction. And always, no judgment from me. People do their own things with their own lives, and I appreciate all of them for it. But for me, I'm never going to go behind a paywall. Right, so, and also, who the fuck would pay to listen to me waffle? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not worth paying for. So, with that in mind, let's get stuck into the Echo for a minute, because I have a bit of I won't even call it a love-hate relationship. I have a frustration with the Liverpool Echo and some of the journalists. Now, two in particular catch my ire a lot of the time, and they're Paul Gorst and Ian Doyle. So I want to just read you something that was written by Messer Gorst after last night's game, and I want to see if you agree with what he had to say. Now, of course, this is one segment of a greater piece, and the piece is up there on the Echo's website if you'd like to go and read it. So, this is what he was talking about, and this was in relation to the pressure to put out a better team to get a result last night. This is what Paul Gorst wrote, part of it. Instead, Slot selected the exact sort of team that the Liverpool boss would reasonably be expected to do at this stage of a competition that plainly sits bottom in the list of priorities. The message, despite the month from hell, was crystal clear. There's no panic here. It was bold, it was brave, and while it was not quite Brendan Rodgers controversially resting the major stars at Real Madrid in an effort to secure a Premier League win later that week against Chelsea, with Liverpool entertaining Aston Villa next, there were at least some similarities to November 2014. So I want to just call out some of this, because it wasn't bold and it wasn't brave. It was wrong. Simple as that. Not bold, not brave, wrong. There were match-going, fee-paying fans that travelled to that game yesterday, and Arne basically stuck two fingers up at them, in my opinion, with his team selection. And it's not just the team selection. It's the squad selection. So we then hear our manager come out and say that before he went out, he looked at Manchester City's 11. Now, just stop for 1 second and answer me a simple question. Why would Arne Slot stop to have a look at the 11 and the bench that Manchester City put out before he went to play that game? Just why? Ask yourself. I'll tell you the answer that I think. It's because he had a built-in ready-made excuse. He'd seen what others had done and he thought to himself, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to lean into this, which he duly did after the game when he came on and spoke about Manchester City's squad depth and others. Now, we made a point before the game yesterday of going through Newcastle's team, Spurs' team, Arsenal's team, Manchester City's team, Crystal Palace's team, and showing you the difference in squads of each of them and the strength that they selected compared to ours. Now, the narrative here, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be that Liverpool have an injury crisis. That is also bullshit. And it's not just my opinion on that. I'm going to run you through numbers on that. So, you know me, I'm outspoken. And I asked Paul Gorst on X via our account, does he have a spine? How does he manage to stand up if he doesn't have a spine? Because this isn't journalism. This is cheerleading. This is bullshit. This is brown-nosing. And it does not represent the opinions of a fan base, nor do I claim to myself, by the way, nor does it represent honesty. It is nothing short of bullshit that they continue to just brown-nose the club at every opportunity, despite some clear failures. I don't know who they represent. I don't know the readership, but I know as a Liverpool fan, I read some of the stuff that I see there and it absolutely boils my blood because it's not based in any kind of reality whatsoever. So now let's move on to talk about the injuries. What injuries do Liverpool currently have and when are they back? Now, full disclosure, a lot of this information I'm about to read out to you is from Sky Sports, so credit them for these pieces. So Alisson Becker, he's ruled out, we know that. He'll be back November the 10th. Stefan Bajcetic, the rumoured return date for him is the Real Madrid game next week. So will he be in a starting lineup? Probably not, but he's expected to be back then. Then we have Ryan Gravenberch, who is now fit and available and should be playing the game against Villa on Saturday. Isak and Leone. Again, Isak should be back for the game of the weekend, if not definitely Real Madrid. So then you've got Leone, who's a long-term one, Curtis Jones, who we don't know when he's back, and Jadon Danns. So do we really have an injury crisis? No. Do we have a squad that is smaller than others in the Premier League? No. It's just more excuses from a manager that spent nearly £500 million, or a club that spent nearly £500 million. Now, again, I told you I have numbers to back up what we're talking about here. So let's look at the days lost from injuries so far this season in the Premier League. Again, compiled by Opta, not by me, not by another fan, backed by facts. Who sits top of having missed most days in the Premier League this season with injury? Is it Liverpool? No. It is Spurs. And I did forget Frimpong. You were correct, Harry. I did forget Frimpong. Thank you for that one, mate. That, by the way, has been confirmed for 6 weeks, Jeremy Frimpong. And thank you, mate. I did forget that, and I always want to be balanced and fair. So Spurs sit top of the pile. A long way clear of anybody else. You have to look down to the middle of the league before you start to see where Liverpool are. So these teams all have more injuries or have missed more games this season through injury than Liverpool. Spurs, Sunderland, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Manchester City, Arsenal and Burnley have all lost more days to injury than Liverpool this season. So why is it that it's an acceptable excuse for us to put out a piss-poor weakened squad last night? Were we or were we not told in the summer that Liverpool's transfer business was to set Liverpool up to be able to compete across every front this season and not have another repeat of having to put out a team like that lost to Plymouth Argyle? Did we or did we not hear that? The revisionism and the brown-nosing from some of these fucking journalists is absolutely appalling, and I'm quite frankly sick of it. I know they'll jump on X and social media, give each other a pat on the back and say, big bad bald Irishman is a bully. I don't give a fuck, because they need to be called out for this stuff, because it's absolute bollocks. Next up, squad depth. Let's have a look at that. Are we really lacking? So Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, again, transfer market is the source, Sky Sports is the article. Goalkeeper, Arsenal have 2, Liverpool have 3, Manchester City have 4. So we're pretty much in the middle there. Centre-backs, believe it or not, we have the joint most amount of centre-backs available. So where's this small squad that Arne is talking about? Arsenal, 4 centre-backs. Liverpool, 5 centre-backs. Manchester City, 5 centre-backs. Then we have left-back. Arsenal, 2 left-backs. Liverpool, 2 left-backs. Manchester City, 2 left-backs. Right-back, again, 2 right across the board for the 3 clubs. Defensive midfielders. And this is going to make you laugh. We actually have more of them than Arsenal. I know, you probably don't believe that. Arsenal have 2 defensive midfielders. Liverpool have 3 defensive midfielders. Manchester City have 3 defensive midfielders. Central midfielders, again, we have more than Arsenal. I have 2, Liverpool have 3, Manchester City have 2. So again, Liverpool top of the pile there. Attacking midfielders, Manchester City have 1. 1. Liverpool have 3. Liverpool have 2 and Arsenal have 3. Move on to the left wing. Everybody is 2 across the board. Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City. Right wing, Arsenal have far more there. They have 3, Liverpool have 2, and Manchester City have 3. And centre forwards, Liverpool have 2, Manchester City have 2, and Arsenal have 3. So where is this smaller squad that our cry arson manager, who's just dropped nearly £500 million on players? Where's the small squad? It is nothing short of fucking excuses. And that's all that they are. You lost 6 games out of 7. Hasn't happened since 1953. You can't window dress this up and make excuses. The fault lies with the manager, the selection, and of course, if you want to talk about recruitment, we can do that as well. Who made the recruitment? Who made the decision for the players? Did Arne sign off on these players? How do these players fit into the system? How is he going to utilise these players? These are all things that Liverpool Football Club fans can reasonably expect to have conversations about. So again, I'm going to say, the Echo need to stop this nonsense of brown-nosing the manager and being condescending arseholes to the rest of us and think that they know better. The numbers don't back up their myth. Their own reporting in the summer doesn't back up their myth. We were supposed to be able to compete across all competitions, not just throw away a competition because the manager wants to prove a damn point. It's not good enough and it needs to be said. So, thank you for listening to my little rant at the start. I needed to get that off my chest because I spent a day compiling that because I knew it didn't smell right. I knew it didn't. And like I've said, I don't know any of these individuals. I don't know Gorst, I don't know Doyle. Never met them, don't want to meet them. No interest in it. But they are, like myself, people with an influence on a Liverpool fan base and a readership. And they're not talking the truth. They're making excuses yet again. And you know why, and I know why, and they know why. Right. I want to read you out one more piece. And this one comes from Theo Squires of The Echo. And this is the condescending arsehole stuff I'm talking about, by the way. And again, I don't know Theo Squires, but this is bullshit again. And if the toxic consensus across social media was used to make the managerial decisions at Anfield, Arne Slot would perhaps have already been handed his P45. But that vocal minority, so the minority of Liverpool fans are unhappy. And the majority are tickety fucking boo, according to Theo Squires. However, overwhelmingly, it may appear at times, never paints a full picture. Theo goes on to write, there was never any suggestion of the Anfield crowd turning on Slot on Wednesday night, despite natural disappointment at Liverpool's 3-0 loss and the sight of a weekend squad featuring a bench made entirely of academy players. Are you for fucking real? I have spoken to dozens of Liverpool fans that were at that game, and I can tell you categorically that every single one of them was annoyed when that team sheet came out. Every single one of them is pissed off at the manager at the minute, particularly with the nonsense excuse making he's making. So please drop the condescending bullshit and stop painting everybody that has anything critical to say on social media or elsewhere as toxic. Because it is lazy, and it is right up there with Ian Doyle saying that all these fans who wanted transfers wanted to be Manchester City and Chelsea fans. Again, it is bullshit and it needs to be called out. Because it isn't balanced, it isn't actual journalism, it is brown-nosing nonsense. Simple as. End of. Thank you. Right. Chris said, the game against Villa is supposed to be the easier of the next 3, but beating Villa won't appease me, as would have to beat Manchester City and Madrid. Lost to them, and it's a permanent holiday in Dubai. So, as I said, Chris, I've said this all week, bro. I'm not going to tell anybody else when's the right time. You know, you're fully free to make up your own mind. For instance, Chris, you know, on the podcast today, I again asked him, what would it take for yourself? And he said and reiterated, we'd have to pretty much lose every game up to Christmas. And that's cool. Chris is entitled to that view. I'm a little bit different in that 6 losses in 7, whatever way you paint it, is not acceptable at Liverpool Football Club and standards have to be met. But I do understand that managers and teams go through a difficult patch. But what you do have to see is an acceptance that there's a problem, a willingness to change it, and most importantly, you need to see that borne out on the pitch with performances and effort. And right now, folks, we haven't really got that. Now, Dave, you said Chris is a wet wipe. You can go and fuck yourself. You won't talk about my friend like that. You will not talk about somebody who contributes to this channel like that. You can do one, sir. Respect, remember? It's a minimum on here. Anyway, sorry, to go back to your point, Chris. Each person to their own. For me, I said Crystal Palace isn't going to be a deciding factor that would make or break my opinion. But these next 3 games, sir, they absolutely are. If he loses 2 of these 3 games, and of course there could be extenuating circumstances. One could be really unlucky. But if we still look similar after these 3 games, and there hasn't been much of an improvement, that's going to be my point where I say I've seen enough. But like I said, I'm not going to judge anybody else. Gordon Papella said, laugh my ass off, no free speech. So, excuse me if I'm wrong, Gordon. Did he just say what he said? You have entitlement to all the free speech you want, but you don't have an entitlement to be freed from consequences of what you say. You fucking ignorant little prat. So again, this isn't a county square that you can stand in. This is a channel that is run by somebody who will decide what speech he likes and what speech he doesn't like. And again, all you free speech merchants don't understand the meaning of the fucking word. You have every entitlement to say what you want, but the actions of those are down to me. I decide the consequences in this chat of what you say. And he was free to say what he said, and I was free to tell him to fuck off. See how that works? Free speech. You don't get to remove yourself from consequences of that speech. Right. Craig, love your work, mate. I believe this season will be good. It's just about tactics and mentality. The talent is obviously there. It is there, absolutely. So one thing that I keep going back on is I don't really have too much I would look back on in the summer and do differently. I would love the question to ask who made those transfer decisions ultimately. And again, I'm not trying to pin the finger of blame here. But what I'm saying is if it was Arna that had the final deciding vote, that makes me a little bit more concerned because you're not seeing an ability to knit these players all in the way that we would have assumed, or a style that gets the best out of what we're seeing. Absolutely fair enough to say, Maverick, that we will come good, because you look at the quality of the players and there was just way too many good players for this team to fail longer term. And that's even why I'm more Maverick, why I'm even more adamant it's down to the manager. Because the players are good, we know that, but is it the system? Is it the coaching? Is it the words from the manager? I don't know. But that's why I put it down. That's why I put it down to coaching and not a bedding in process. Because we ain't seen the reaction. Oren said, hi Craig, hope you're well. Me and my pregnant partner travelled an 8-hour round trip to stand in the piss and rain and watch us get done in by Palace. Mint. Mate, I travelled over for my first game in 3 years. Spent a lot of money, let's just say, to go into the Sevens Lounge, travel over, flights, hotels, car hire, to watch us get beaten 2-1 by Manchester United. Now look, we've got no entitlements to go over there and decide a win. But at least I got to see the first team. And at least I felt like that was a game we lost. It happens. For anybody that went to that game last night, you have my utmost sympathies. Because the manager just threw away that. It was disrespectful. And to say that this is what this club does, plays younger players in this competition, that's fair enough. But we also have a stacked bench. That was a game where as soon as we went 1-0 down, it was all over. Because we had no way back in. Now, how has this benefited any of those younger players? Nalo, that poor lad's confidence must be shot now. 16 minutes and 2 red cards for Liverpool, and he is a decent footballer. I just don't see I don't see how this can escape anyone's notice that he basically just stuck two fingers up to all the people that paid their money to go to that game last night, to travel from all parts of the UK, all around the world, to go and attend that. Some of them, their first game, some of them, the only game they're able to get to because of the way tickets are. And again, that's the team that was put out. It's unacceptable. So for the Echo to say that there was no groans or unhappiness inside Anfield is a flat out fucking lie. Because as I said to you, I know many people who were at that game, some of them probably in our chat tonight, who can attest to the head in hands when they seen the squad, who thought, no, whatever about a starting 11, you need to have 3-4 good first team senior players on that bench minimum to turn it around. Malty said, I was at the game last night and was speaking to a steward, and even he couldn't believe the team we put out. See? There you go. I didn't even have to go far to find somebody who was at the game last night to say exactly what I'm saying. And when we talk about this, mate, and we call it out, we're painted as toxic. This is the lazy bullshit world we live in now. Any criticism is classed as hate, and anything that's said against the grain is toxic. Sorry, not going to stop me. Never going to change my mind. If I make up my mind on something and I see something that I don't like, I'm calling it out. Despite whoever is standing in the way, despite whoever's trying to paint a different picture, I know what I've seen. You know what you've seen. And we have seen 6 games from 7 be lost from a manager who's been given £500 million pretty much to strengthen this team. And he's talking about injuries? It's not good enough. Masalami said, it's all about quality, not quantity. We lack quality and we know it. Few other teams have more quality. Well, she said, the thing is, when Klopp started, he managed expectations at the start. He said, give me 4 years. And sure enough, 4 years later, he delivered. And also, again, I keep coming back to this. We were told that the business in the summer was to stop this type of stuff. To stop Liverpool exiting competitions early because of an overloaded squad or overloaded work rate. And then when the losses start, the revisionism starts. And all of a sudden, the standards that were spoken about in the summer, that all of us shared, are measured back and pared back to suit the narrative. And anybody who dare call and talk about standards is again called a plastic fan, a fair weather fan, a glory hunting fan. For what? For having a standard? Because I tell you, if I was in the dressing room and we'd lost 6 out of 7 games, I'd be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed to be out. I'd be embarrassed to be doing interviews. And fair play to Andy Robertson for at least saying it like it is. White Noble said, in my opinion, Slot has lost the dressing room. Not getting Gay was a massive mistake. So the Mark Gay thing, mate, is one that genuinely I'm on the fence with, because I don't know why we didn't move for him earlier. I don't, like, if it does feel a strange one, like, were we trying to be clever? Or was it kind of like, well, we've looked around and let's try for Mark Gay? Truth is, I don't know the answer to it. I agree with you. It is. And look, it's bitten us in the ass even more now with young Giovanni Leone's injury, because, you know, he looked really good in that little spell we'd seen for him against Southampton. And unfortunately, he's out for the guts of a year. And of course, we wish him a speedy recovery. But yeah, it was a huge mistake not to get a Mark Gay. And so much so now that it looks like we're falling on the pecking order of options for him based off what a lot of reporting in the media is saying. You know, we can't talk to him in January without putting in a bid. But Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, any club in Europe outside of the UK or outside of the Premier League can sit down with Gay and his representatives in January and agree a pre-contract deal. So we're now at a kind of a disadvantage there as well. One name who's been brought up today was Schlotterbeck, and Bild have said that Liverpool remain keen on Nico Schlotterbeck from Borussia Dortmund. So, you know, we'll keep an eye on that one. But yeah, we definitely did shit the bed with not getting Mark Gay in, but we did try. So I don't know who to be angry at, or even if I should be angry, to be honest with you, mate, because some would say we should have moved earlier in the window. But would we not have still had the same issue? Would Crystal Palace still not have had another centre-back? I don't know, is the honest answer, bro. But you're absolutely right. We need a centre-back badly. And this one has bitten us in the backside. Colin Owen said, well done, Craig, for having the guts to speak the truth. Look, I don't want a pat on the back or an attaboy for this type of stuff at all, because I'm just trying to have an honest conversation. Nor am I ever trying to say that I'm right all the time. But I just can't stand people being spoken down to by others. And especially when it's bullshit. And so much of the narrative is nonsense. Like, our manager is speaking pony in every press conference, and it's clear as the nose on his face. Like, it's there for all to see. And you can look at it and think, well, he's trying to take the pressure off the players, maybe. But I don't feel it's that type of... Because he's not bringing it on to himself. He's just trotting out an excuse. Like, imagine talking about squad depth of others when you chose not to play any of the players or put them on the bench last night. It wasn't an injury thing. It was an Ireland decision thing. And now all he's done is kick the can down the road, and Saturday now becomes even bigger pressure than it probably already was. And since when have we become so arrogant that we can just throw away trophies? Like, I know everybody has their own priority list and some don't rate the League Cup or whatever, but it's a trophy. It's a trophy. And it's a trophy, most importantly, Slot hasn't won yet. So why are we so arrogant that we're just writing off competitions? Because we probably ain't going to win the Prem this year with the team we have and the way we're playing, unless something drastic changes there. Champions League, at the best of times, is a roll of the dice, even if you're in great form. So why are we so arrogant to just say, oh, well, it's only a competition, let's just wash our hands of it? It's not good enough. Alex said, Slot as a sausage, that lineup was a joke. So I don't know if I'm speaking for you here, Alex, or others, but it wasn't so much the 11 that made me angry, because we do often put out a young 11 or a mixed 11. It's the squad dude that did it for me. Not having, like, okay, he usually does rest Virgil. He usually does rest Mo. They're usually not in these, League Cup early round games. But to not have a Wirtz on the bench, a Soboslai on the bench, a one central defender like Kanade maybe on the bench, even just to say, you don't deserve a rest. You haven't earned a rest. You still need to get out there and prove yourself. That's what got me, mate, is the squad more than the 11. The real Johnny Sin said, Craig, did you see last night Chiesa broke the Palace line and not one player busted a gut to help him, and when he inevitably lost the ball, his face said it all. Slot hung him out to dry yesterday. So I said something yesterday before the game started, and I stand over it. Chiesa could have scored a hat-trick last night, and he still wouldn't have been in the manager's thoughts to start on Saturday. Rio Engamoa could have done the same. He still wouldn't have been in the manager's thoughts to start on Saturday. And now we're finally starting to see... I was reading an article on Sky, and Neil Atkinson of the Anfield Wrap was talking about the options that we have. And he was spot on. He said Liverpool basically have gone from having 5 first-team available forwards to 4 with the window we've had. Right? Let that sink in. We've gone backwards now with the amount of forwards that the manager truly trusts to put out there. And I'm sure what Neil meant by that was he's not looking at Chiesa, he's not looking at Engamoa as really options to come in there week in, week out. So we've then put ourselves down to 4. Now, if you've got one of them who's still playing catch-up in Alexander Isak and whose form isn't great, and Mohamed Salah, who again's form isn't great, a Gakpo who isn't as attack-minded or as direct, shall we say, as Luis Diaz, again, we're hamstringing ourselves. So this is what blows my mind. It just absolutely blows my mind that this stuff is getting, glossed over by a lot. So fair play to Neil for saying that. I don't know Neil, like I said, but I read it and I thought, yes, he's right. And I've said it many times on here as well. One of my biggest frustrations last year was looking at our bench and knowing that 2 or 3 players on that bench are just there to make up numbers, that the manager won't turn to them. And I'm talking about Elliott last season, Chiesa. This season, it's pretty much the same, but with Chiesa and Engamoa. So don't tell us that you don't want to block a pathway through and then start using excuses about numbers. Give these guys time, or tell us they're not ready for the here and now. But whatever has gone on between him and Federico Chiesa, I don't have a clue. I don't have a clue, because I cannot rationally think of why somebody who seems to tick a lot of the boxes for things we would want in a Liverpool player, which is good grace, hard work, an absolute desire to be at the club, giving everything out there on the pitch, not sulking, not moaning, not moping around, why that player is constantly just shunned. It doesn't make any sense. Red said, if Slot gets sacked, who next? Ancelotti, maybe? We tried to discuss it on the podcast today, and in all honesty, we pretty much drew a blank. You know, you could throw an Ancelotti name out there, but isn't he the Brazil manager now? But if you threw Ancelotti's name out there, I'm probably thinking short-term stuff there. Iriola, it's another roll of the dice. Let's be honest about it. It could become another Brendan Rodgers. It could be a masterstroke. But you're not talking about tried and tested, proven quality there. You're talking about somebody who's done very well, coming through the levels, has Bournemouth absolutely playing great stuff and overperforming, but it's still a big job. So hand on heart, I really don't know who the guy would be. And as much as I've moaned a lot through this, I promise you, I want Arne to turn this around. I do. I have always had faith in Arne. But I can't see the same shit happening all the time and excuses and just lap it up. He needs to start doing something to get something out of that dressing room. I don't know what it is. And another thing that we spoke about on the pod was, do you reckon we've maybe underplayed the loss of Johnny Heidinger to the setup? Because, you know, it's very difficult to know the dynamics in there. We're not on the training ground every day. But, you know, Heidinger always looked like the players were responding to him, looked like he was getting on with Arne. And look, sure, the results last season were very good. And I don't know what Giovanni van Bronckhorst is like, but I do know when managers lose a number two, sometimes that can cause an issue. So maybe that's another thing that we haven't really addressed as fans or looked at. Certainly we've seen it with Klopp, with Buvac at one point there, and Pep Linders came in, of course, as well. So, you know, that's another conversation, I guess, worth having. Will said, Craig, I'm tired of the same no style of play. The style is I don't know what it is. I know what we wanted, what we expected, but somebody, Stargirl, I believe it was Stargirl, said last night in a comment on the stream, Craig, the people who brought Arne Slot to the football club brought him in because statistically he was very close to Jurgen, the style of football, and we wouldn't have had to have wholesale changes throughout the personnel of the squad to get the best out. And then it's the part that she finished with that absolutely nailed it. She said, what's happened to that? What's happened to those similarities? What's happened to that pressing? To the thing that was one of the reasons why they were so determined to bring Arne Slot to Liverpool? Where have those philosophies gone? Because we're not seeing them out there on the pitch. The press doesn't look right. So much of what we're seeing looks so far removed from the style of football under Jurgen. Now, of course, every manager is free to make their own changes as they build their own squad. But I would challenge anybody to tell me what we are doing and what the plan is. Because it can't be just moving the ball side to side. It can't be having no options ahead. It can't be checking back inside to let teams reset. But that's what we're seeing. And if any of this is done to try and be more defensively solid, that ain't happening either. So I thought it was a really good point that Stargirl made, and it had me thinking about it for the last 12 hours. I think we need to stick with it, said Liam. Lots of change. Look, I'm okay to that as well, Liam. If you're somebody, mate, that wants to see this through and stick at it, I get that. You know, I'm not trying to force my opinion down your throat. You know, I've always said that this is a very personal decision for anybody because I've not had to ever say I want a manager out since I've been doing this. Never. So it will be a big issue for me to say it, as much as people might not believe that. And I haven't there yet. But I'm getting close. I'm getting close because something has to give. And I always talk about the smell test. Something doesn't feel right at the minute. And I don't know what that is. NEO5ZS said, Slot doesn't understand the importance of rhythm. You think Leicester would have won the Prem without winning and drawing the last 11 games? Disappointed. So I also would add to that, mate, when we have conversations about form, we almost disregard the end of last season, which again was when this slip of our form started to come in. It's been a long time coming, and it's easy to just say then, well, we've won the league, don't worry about it. But we also lost the League Cup early in, what was it, March time, April time. And then we just went on the run where, we couldn't play with that intensity, maybe because we didn't need to, but it's very hard to switch that back on. And the hypocrisies of this football club has standards when we're hearing from our manager and from our captain. Well, what happens when those standards aren't being met? What's the consequences? Because I don't see any. Craig, if we don't get top four with the owner's sack slot at the end of the season, asks Elliot. Mate, I really don't know. I don't know because there are so many moving pieces here. What countenance or what thought do they give to the Diogo tragedy? Do they say, well, this is going to be a difficult season for everybody, so we have a little bit more willingness to allow for this blip? Do they think, no, this isn't good enough? Do they think, I don't know. And I'm trying to figure it out because every person that has a different view on it, there's an understandable reason for what they're saying. So if I sat here and said they need to be ruthless, they spend a lot of money, that would have credibility to it. If I sat here and said, well, with the personnel changes, with the tragedy with Diogo, they need to be a bit more patient, that would absolutely have credibility to it as well. So I don't know is the answer, dude. I can only, again, say what I would do. This one. Going to the game on Saturday, and for the first time, I'm more excited for the trip than the match, said Aaron Ronan. Well, mate, I hope you have a great trip, and I hope, obviously, the result is what we all want, because we know what this group are capable of, and we didn't sign bad players. Yes, we lost some players, and we've spoken about that at length, but we brought in great players. And I'm starting to see these type of stories being written now, which it's going to make you laugh when you read this because it is nothing short of bollocks. But Anfield Edition posted a quote or something credited to Didi Hamann, where they said, Didi Hamann has said to look out for the possibility of Real Madrid making a loan move for Florian Wirtz in January, with Xabi Alonso keeping an eye on his performances and talking fondly of him. What? Like, what? In what world is that going to be a possibility? Where you bring in a £115 million player and loan him out to Real Madrid mid-season. What? Like, what? I don't even, like, what the fuck do you say to that, like? Well, while we're in the realms of the ridiculous, and we're talking about Real Madrid, well, Jorge Picon and Madrid Zone have posted this. You can check it yourself. Real Madrid are demanding €4.5 billion in damages from UEFA for reputational damage and for their inability to kick on with the Super League. That €4.5 billion for trying to look out for themselves and fuck over everybody in the UEFA family. €4.5 billion. And Real Madrid have the cheek to talk about respect. Fuck me. That club, man. That club. Chris said, thanks for your backlog, Craig. Mum's doing well, despite the dementia and a recent skin cancer scare. Mum is Irish, born and bred, Limerick, and despite everything turned 90 during August, LFC performances are a worry. Well, sending love to your mum, Chris, and yourself, of course. Yeah, performances are definitely a worry, but, we all want it to turn around. We all want Arna to find the solution, but it's not like we're seeing things that are so obvious that we can fix, or a system that is forcing mistakes from players as they get used to it. We just look really disjointed all over the place. Bill Ben said Frimpong isn't going to be up to the Prem, I feel. So my question on Frimpong is more, where does the manager see him? Because I'm not going to sit here and say Jeremy Frimpong isn't a good footballer. He is. I'm not going to sit here and say he must be anything but great in the changing room, because he looks like a sound guy, comes across very well, family look lovely, looks like he comes from a good background. But what I don't understand is where Arna wants to play him, because it hasn't worked in the few instances we've seen him at right wing, and he isn't really a right back. So where's he going to be played? And again, this isn't the Jeremy Frimpong isn't a good footballer thing. This is just genuinely, I don't know what the plan is. Like, if we were going to go to a back three, then fair enough. If you're going to a back three and you were talking about wing backs, maybe. But it doesn't look like that there is a clear identity of where he wants Frimpong to play. Mixing between Frimpong, Bradley, and Szoboszlai at right back, it's been quite confusing to figure that out. Carrie Lad said, this is turning into the 22-23 season, Craig. Do you agree with me? Maybe. So, yeah, maybe, but it's too hard to say. Michael said, Chris, well, my name's Craig, mate, but, no problem with that. Good analysis, but you distort Squire's point to suit your own. Your preamble states that he said the minority are toxic. Then you say spoke to many who are unhappy. That's different. No, you've quoted me wrongly. What I said about what he said is, and if the toxic consensus across social media was used to make managerial decisions at Anfield, Slot would perhaps have already been handed his P45. What you're confusing me talking about, mate, was the lack of annoyance towards Arne Slot inside Anfield, is what I said I've spoken to people about. So you can throw in as many big words as you want there, mate, to try and make yourself sound clever about it. But I know what I said. It's there. Rewind it back and listen to me. And you're conflating two issues and mixing them in together. So, and you're entitled to your opinion, by the way, Michael. That's absolutely fine. But I'm fed up of anybody who's critical being talked about as toxic. And there are some toxic people on social media. Of course there are. But this, we're super fans, we're the real Reds, you all don't understand bullshit, can fuck right off. And like I've said, I don't know Theo Squires, and I have nothing personal against Theo whatsoever. But I'm going to call out nonsense when I read it, because to me, mate, that is just nonsense. And like I said, I think you're actually conflating two things that I said and mixing them together. Maddie said, I agree with what Slot did last night. He had to have the first team on the training ground all week, drilling them. It's unfortunate that the fans lost out because of it, but he has to win this Villa game. His job is on the line. So I appreciate your viewpoint, Maddie. What I would say, mate, is, and again, this is a feeling rather than a statistically proven thing, but normally, Maddie, when we see our boys given a break, we don't play well afterwards. Think about the warm weather training camps or stuff like that. So I would argue that you still could have put 3-4 first team players on that bench, mate. Because again, only 11 players are going to start a game at the weekend. So even just given half an hour last night, or when we went 2-0 down at half time, if you were able to bring on a Wirtz or a Szoboszlai or somebody there, I think it would have made a big difference. And also, you kind of hinted to it yourself at the end of what you said, mate. Saturday's a far bigger game, and you're right. But what happens if he loses that, Maddie? So what happens if he's made the sacrifice midweek and it backfires at the weekend? It's now become a bigger problem after that, in my view, mate. But again, I appreciate your viewpoint and thank you for sharing it with us, mate. We don't always have to agree. That's fine. But, you did so in a very balanced and fair way, man. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Liam said, I'm taking results in my stride. Want to see plan. I wish I could take the results in my stride, mate. And I also wish I could see a plan. Because on the face of it, I know we've got a good group of footballers. I know the manager's been backed. I know the manager's performed last year to win a league. But what I don't know is what the style of philosophy of football is that we're playing with and what he's going to do to make it different. All I hear is him saying teams play differently against us. Teams play with a low block. He doesn't like these long throw-ins. We can't defend them. This isn't the language of somebody who feels positive, in my opinion. It's the language of somebody who's just searching for excuses. But like I said, man, these are all personal things, and I appreciate your view on it and that we look at it differently. No problem with that at all, Liam. Jordan said, will the Anfield atmosphere get toxic with a loss to Villa? I guess that depends on what your view of toxic is. So I never expect the crowd to turn and start booing, as an example. Look, I know the trend stuff before somebody brings it up, but it's kind of one of these things where my dad always said to me, you don't give out to family in front of the public. You give out to family behind closed doors. So I kind of view the same with Liverpool fans in that we have our little communities, we have our forums, we have our podcasts or whatever, and we vent and we have our says there. But inside the stadium, you want to be behind the team and the manager. And, you know, nobody's going to be happy losing games of football. So will it get toxic inside the stadium? I hope not for everybody. For the fans, for the players, for the manager. Because everybody wants the same thing. We want it to be successful. But, you know, as for the crowd, I couldn't tell you, dude. I can only tell you how I'll feel if we lose against Villa. And that is, again, barring context of the loss, I'll be pretty pissed off about it. But, you know, I did my preview earlier on. It's coming out at 10:45. Went through the usual recent results against them, injuries coming into the game, form of both teams, and gave you my 11 and score prediction. And I didn't predict a loss, so that is something. But yeah, don't know. I don't know on that. But I don't want it to get to that point either. I want solutions to be found. And Nola Eli said, Slots just got stale tactics. It's difficult for the fans in the stadium to get up for slow, deflating football with sideways centre-back passing. I was really surprised at the lack of intensity in our play when I went to the United game and the lack of urgency in our play until Hugo Ekitike came on and Jones came on. And then you could almost feel the cop lift, the whole stadium lift at like an expectation that, okay, something will change now. And we did. We got back to 1-1 and then we lost the game with, again, somehow leaving Maguire unchallenged to win a header and score. Henry Dunlap said Diaz was on 55k a week. No, he wasn't. And you don't, again, Henry, you don't have to take my word for that. It's been published by journalists. I've spoken to people as well. The line is that he was on about 140 when everything was taken into account. So, you know, I just want to put that out there. I'm not denying that Diaz deserved a pay bump or anything like that, because he absolutely did. And I can't tell you why the club really didn't seem to want to go into those conversations. I don't know. But he wasn't on as low a wage as that. Can't believe that's said about the top 5 leagues and us losing the most. Well, just in case anybody doesn't know what that gentleman's talking about, since I think September the 29th, whenever it was, no other team in Europe's top 5 leagues, and I don't mean the top teams, I mean no other team, from the winners or the leaders to the relegation candidates, no other team in Europe's top 5 leagues have lost more games since in the last month than Liverpool Football Club. Nobody. It's not a great stat, is it? Wasted that the GOAT said, my honest opinion, Slot isn't the man for Liverpool. Last season, those good last few games were awful. Can't believe what I'm watching week in and week out. So this is the irony, right, where I've so far always defended Arna for last season. Andy March said he's still milking viewers for money. Yeah, I am, Andy. All this free content, milking people for money. But it's okay, because you can watch on in jealousy, mate, and just think, how the fuck does he do it? Milking people for money. All my content is free. This is what makes me fucking laugh about you idiots. Free, bitch, free. Want to talk about the others? Well, they're all behind the paywall. Free. Every single fucking word free. So how am I milking? Because if people don't watch, nobody gets paid. But they do watch. And why might that be, bitch? That might be because they can relate to me. Because they like what I have to say. But either way, how could you milk something that's free? Just keep on hating though. Because I'll just keep going up and up and up and up and up. And you'll still be a sad little fuck on the internet who knows nothing about YouTube, which you've clearly displayed. So, crack on. So, on the slot thing, wasted to go. I've said I don't think he won the league because it was Slot's team. I don't, because it was our Klopp's team. I think he made changes last year that allowed the team that he fell off with injuries and stuff to sustain it a bit longer to get over the line. So I've always given him the credit for that. But yeah, this season I don't know what's going on, man. I just don't. Leo said, "Go on, Craig, put them in their place." They're just so stupid. Like they don't even have a clue what they're talking about. Like milking people for money when it's free. I don't sell you anything. Like this is how thick these fuckers are. They just want to hate because they can't do what I do. They don't have the balls to do what I do. They don't have the charisma to do what I do. They don't have the knowledge to do what I do. All they can do is sit on the internet and hate. And I fucking love it. Every second of it. Knowing how much these people that I've never met despise the fact that I'm relevant. It honestly brings me so much joy. So much more, mate, than the actual money. Because knowing I have you fuckers on tilt, and I've never met you. I don't even know you exist. And I'm so in your head that you're concerned about what I'm making for a living based off free content. It honestly makes my fucking heart sing knowing that it winds you up so much. It's fucking brilliant. So please continue. Aaron said, Craig, if we do feck all else but win the League Cup, is the season a failure? So we had, actually, weirdly enough, man, we had this conversation in the summer and we said, what constitutes a failure this season, right? Now, of course, I don't expect that everybody was in for all these chats, but we did have this conversation. And we said one of the two big ones is the minimum this season with what we've built. So the League Cup is better than no cup, don't get me wrong. But we were ready to judge the season and the money spent on the two biggies. Now, nothing's over yet. The league, we're falling away, and I'm not putting any money on us winning it. But like I said, if we can get this right, if we can click Champions League, like PSG, get into that latter stages, anything's possible. So yes, a League Cup based off the conversations that we've had together as a fan base at the start of the summer would have felt like an underwhelming season for me, yes. Regis said I think the most worrying thing is that Liverpool are playing without identity. That really, really, really sums up how I'm at, because I've tried to reiterate this over and over again. If Arna had implemented, let's say, a 3 at the back system, and we were seeing mistakes coming from players trying to understand the new system, and let's say it was mistakes trying to play out from the back or on when to draw a press, if it were these things, I'd be far more calm and rational about it. But it doesn't look like that to me. It looks like nobody really understands what's happening, what style of football we're trying to play, and as you said, no identity to what we're doing. And that's what has me most concerned. Because you can't win the Premier League just keeping the ball. You need to make use of that football. And statistics are not worth a shite. The only statistic that matters is the scoreboard at the end of a game. And you win that game with 20%, fair play to you, possession. Don't care as long as we win the games of football. So, yeah, the identity is definitely a crisis. Grim Reaper said, Craig, score predictions for the Villa game. You're going 2-1. I don't want to give you mine yet because the preview's coming out at 10:45, and I want to milk you for that money. So make sure that you're there to watch that one. Now make sure you have your wallet out to pay for all that free content. But yeah, anyway, long story short, mate, preview's coming out at 10:45, and look, your scoreline is absolutely doable. We could win that game. But, let's not forget Villa are in a decent run of form themselves. They beat Manchester City and they've beaten Spurs away. So, they're coming into it in decent form. Right, a couple more super chats and I'll drop back in. Chris said, apologies for the spelling issues, but my iPhone Predict does a spack when I'm doing messages here. Backlogging meant backing and can't was cancer, caught early. I'm glad it was caught early, Chris. I seriously am, man, and thank you. Don't have to apologise, dude. My phone does me dirty with autocorrect all the time, and I always appreciate your support, Chris, so thank you and love to you and your family again, mate. Itachi said, feels like Arna can't handle this team anymore. We have to win versus Villa, please. So, in the chat, because I don't think a poll would work for this, let me know what it would take for you. What it would take for you to get to the point where you've seen enough. Is it all of this season? Is it Christmas? Is it next few games? I'd genuinely love to know where you guys are all at with that one. This one. Ryan said, last night was a debacle. Villa have to be beaten. Of course, yeah, of course they have to be beaten. The manager has now added more pressure to that game, in my opinion, with last night's result. Right, so you know what? Let's put it to a poll. Okay, let's put it to a poll. So bear with me while my dumb ass writes this out. Hang on. So I'm trying to put in one more option. So the question I'm going to ask is, what will it take for you to fire Slot? I'm already there now. He has the entire season, a few more losses, or we'll go unsure. Right, so vote away on that one. So yeah, crack on, and we'll have a look at that in a few minutes. If he doesn't get, Michael Hanley said if he doesn't win against Villa comfortably or loses, he's gone for me. Even for me, a loss against Villa isn't there yet because I said I was a man of my word, and he has to lose 2 of the next 3 for me to really feel like that's it. I'm starting to ask myself. Let's say he beats Villa and he loses against Real Madrid and loses against City. Where am I at? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that yet because I need to see how those losses come about, how we played. Because we're playing 2 very good sides. Real Madrid are no mugs. They're a good side, and at any point, at any time, you can lose a game to Real Madrid. Same with Manchester City away. In any season, any fixture, you look at that and you think, right, that's a tough one. So it would depend for me on how those 2 games work out, how we played. If we beat Villa and lose those 2, in theory, I would be saying I've seen enough. But it will have to have some context to it. Liam said, we agree sort of, not ready for sacking, awaiting plan. So we also agree on another thing, Liam. We all want it to work. And that's something in all of this we can't lose sight of. Every single one of us in here that are Liverpool fans have an appetite for it to work and want it to work. Nobody wants to see Arna fail. But, you just come to the point where, like I've asked myself, if Diogo's tragedy hadn't happened, would I be there yet? I think I would. Without the context of the loss and the pain that those guys have suffered. I would probably be there now where I think I've seen enough. But I do take that into my thought process when saying it. And like I've said, it will be a very big deal if I get to the point where I say I want him gone. Because that is something I will not say lightly. I promise you it isn't. I have loads of throwaway rants on here and comments, but to actually call for a manager to be fired, it'll be a first for me. And I hope I never have to say it. Itachi said, what's going to happen for this squad to finally click? Yeah, good question, dude. Good question. One thing I would say is I think he has to settle on an 11 as much as he can. Now, of course, injuries are always going to play a part, but I think he has to find what everybody would say is his best 11. And yet, different opposition, different tactics, everything changes. But most teams would go through, and most fans could probably name 9 of their starting 11 most weeks if everyone's fit and available. And the manager hasn't, expressed his desire to rotate for that game. So I think if we can start with that, figure out what the best 11 is, because right now we've got 2 centre-backs under no pressure because there's no competition for places. One of them whose contract is coming to an end and could be off on a free. The other one who just signed a new deal and, is surrounded by different fullbacks on either sides of them as well, and that's going to take some getting used to. We've got Managerial in goal now, which, again, we're all getting used to him, but Alisson will come back, and that will, of course, help a bit more. It's probably attack that is the most interesting conversation for me at the minute, because for all the money we've spent, I still probably say we need to go out there and get another attacking player now, another wide player to give us more directness. But if we can settle on a team and we can build those relationships around the pitch, because it is important. Like, Mohamed Salah would have known exactly what Trent was going to do, where he was going to play the ball, what line to take, when to time his run. And, they're normal things that you would always accept as a fan, that there are relationships still being built around the pitch between new players and their teammates. But if you don't have a consistent 11, it's much harder to build those relationships. Umar Haniel said, do you think we bought players that aren't good at pressing like Nunes and Diaz were, and that's affecting Slot's system? So I would say no, Umar, and the reason I would say no, mate, is not to be negative about your question. It's because, we know we're data driven, right? We know that Edwards and Hughes and Will Spearman and these guys really look deep into the numbers. So you would have to imagine a way to fit into the way we want to play would have to be there. Now, what we do know is they looked at Ekitike and Isak and said that they're almost mirrors of each other. But what we're seeing is very different, because I'm seeing an Ekitike who's seemingly more willing to do that press and has dropped deeper at times to pick up the ball and with a better understanding with his teammates so far. Isak, I don't know whether it's we can't find the best to get the way out of him yet, or whether he's still getting fully up to speed. But it can't be because they didn't match up to the way the manager wanted to play, because I feel like, those numbers would have well and truly been looked at. DJ Dan Might said, Craig, there's no press whatsoever. The ring line won't press, but the midfield hasn't either. Gapping holes at all. You're right about the press, and the press is look, there's 2 things from my limited understanding at this level. You got to press at the right time, but you also got to go as a unit. You can't go individually and press, because as you rightly said, if one person presses, a hole comes somewhere else. So everybody has to know what sets the press, who triggers the press, and then what happens. And that's where, with like Bobby Firmino, Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane back in the day, that press was on point. That press smothered teams. And that was one of certainly the most impressive things about that Paris Saint-Germain team to me, was they smothered the life out of teams. And we know we have players with the ability to do it, but we're not seeing it yet. So you're right in what you're saying. To me, the press does look non-existent as well, but, it has to be a decision by the manager for that to be the case, because I can't imagine he's coaching up the press and they're not doing it. So they're obviously doing what their instructions are. Oh, I also want to say something about Grandad. Sorry. So many of you who were with us last night know that there was a gentleman who said his granddad, for the first time in 6 years, had gone to a game. He travelled down by train, 5 hours down, 5 hours back, and they were, obviously pissed off with what awaited them. And I said, look, we'd love to cover the cost for your granddad. So, reach out to us and we'll help you out with that and make sure granddad can go again in the future and have a better experience. But the support from you guys in the chat, oh my days. Oh man, I went to bed last night feeling so proud because so many people were saying, this is for granddad, here's a few quid for granddad, here's this, and this. Now, the gentleman hasn't reached out to us yet, and we're hoping that he does. But if he doesn't, we're going to take the share of the money we would have been given to granddad and donate it to Fans for Food Banks or something like that in your name. But I just want to give you a heads up on that because we haven't yet heard from them. And if they do, we'll absolutely cover granddad's train fare that he had to pay and his ticket expenses and stuff like that, as we promised, and on behalf of yourself. But big up to all of you, because the support you showed your own community in that moment last night, that's why I'm here. That's why I do this, because I know what I have. I know what good-hearted people are in our community, despite these arseholes that think I'm here to milk you for money. Or no, that's not my community. That's not our community. You guys are amazing. So big up yourselves for that one. I'll keep you up to date and informed on it, because you donated that money in good faith, and we're going to make sure that that money goes where it's supposed to go, and if it doesn't, to a charity that's worthy of your support. So thank you for that. Right, let's keep going. David, evening, Craig, bro, and a lovely community as always, sir. Pleasure, love to you and the family. I know it's been a tough week for you, sir. The real Johnny Sin said Indy Kayla reported that full time. He'll never admit it, but Arne Slot got the result he wanted tonight. I felt sick to my stomach. I don't. Look, I'm never going to accuse a Liverpool manager of wanting to lose a game, but I think certainly the expectation from me when I seen that squad, and most fans that I know, is if we don't get this to penalties, or draw this, or if we fall behind a couple like we did, it's over. And there was no way back last night. And I don't really remember seeing Anfield emptying out like that. Klopp called it out when some people were going with a few minutes left to go, whatever. But last night, despite the echoes' insistence that those inside the stadium were fully happy and behind the manager 100% there, and they weren't groaning or moaning, I mean, you've seen it. It's been well reported. So obviously there was a lot of disappointment last night with what they'd seen. Jora06 said, which player has disappointed you the most this season? Probably Kirkes. And I'm still not writing them off, to be honest with you, because I think with Milos Kirkes, we can look at it and think he's overly enthusiastic. He's still trying to understand exactly where his positioning is, what the team needs from him. So it isn't through a lack of effort from Milos Kirkes, and I truly do feel that when we have this conversation next year, we'll have seen a player who's settled in, and we will see the player we thought we were getting. But him from the signings, and then Maka from the players who were already here, because I don't know what's going on. It looks like his legs have gone overnight, and then I know he was playing catch up in pre-season, but he looks a long way from the Alexis McAllister that we know and love. So yeah, probably those. Grizzlies Nation said, love your channel, Craig. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that. Nope, this one. Brad Larkin said, one thing is the results of the games, but for me, it's how he acts in the window. In January, does he sit back or act accordingly? Much love to you, bro. Oh, God, the January one's a really interesting question, Brad, because, centre-back and a wide player for me in January. But, of course, I can understand anybody saying DM as well in that conversation. Truth is, I don't know what to expect, if anything, in January, Brad, because historically we know it's a window that managers really don't like to look to unless they're in trouble. And in a World Cup year as well, it's going to be difficult to one, see value, which is something that we know Liverpool have been big on, feeling that there's value in the player that they're getting. So I'm almost not expecting anything because I don't want to be disappointed by January. But I can tell you what I think we need, and that's a central defender, a wide, pacey, direct player, and you could argue with DM, of course, as well. Want to just show you something that I showed last night in the watch along, which is the progress of the studio that we're building in the garden. So I just wanted to show you this so you can have a look at where we're up to so far. So that is where we're currently at. We hope to be into it some stage early next year because we have to kit it out and stuff as it's going up. But that is where we're currently at. And again, thank you for letting this dream come to fruition through your support, through viewing the channel. This is allowing us to move into a proper space. So yeah, we'll keep you up to date and informed, and I'm taking photos as we go through, and we'll compile a start to finish thing when it's over. But that's where we're currently at. Itachi said, I just want the formation where we can play Isak and Ekitike both. I think long term that will be a way to success. Yeah, look, I've been thinking about the whole Isak and Ekitike thing all the way through the summer. When we signed Ugo Ekitike and Isak came in, I'd wondered how it was going to work. Were we going to play with the two up top? But the more we've seen this season, the more I start to think, Itachi, is it worth making Ekitike another option on the left? Which is really unfair of me as well, because if you're talking about a number 9 that deserves to start based on what we've seen through the middle, it is Hugo Ekitike. But I think, there has to be something to be said as well for mixing it up and maybe playing him on the left or Isak alongside him. I don't know, but there has to be a way we can find to play them both together because they're two very good footballers. Thank you, everyone, for the kind words, by the way, in the chat about the studio progress. Thank you. Red Craig said, hi Craig, if LFC are backing him, they have to get some depth because although they spent big in the summer, they only replaced those who left. It is an interesting thing when you look back and think, right, so we've moved on Diaz, Darwin, obviously tragically lost Diogo. Elliott's moved on, Kwanzaa's moved on. Who else am I forgetting that we moved on in the summer? I'm sure there's probably some more. Nat Phillips moved on. Am I forgetting anybody else? Tyler Morton moved on. So yeah, there was quite a few out. And a lot of those that went out were fringe players as well. So, for all the faults that Darwin had, and there were many, and Trent, of course, as well, yeah. The effort was always there, and the work rate and the pressing. Same with Diaz, although Diaz didn't really have many faults, to be fair. I think we're all fond of Diaz as a player. So yeah, have we just kind of treaded water a bit there and maybe not gone the Arsenal route? And by the way, here's the net spend for the summer, because we often sit here and talk about 450 million spent, this, that and the other, but net spend wise we actually spent less money than Arsenal. So Arsenal's net spend this summer's transfer window was 257 million. Liverpool's net spend was 218 million. Net spend obviously being when you take into account sales as well. So Arsenal spent more money than us this summer. Maybe didn't bring in as many individual big name players as you would say as us, but built out that squad and that depth. Manchester United then in third place with a net spend of 170.7 million. Spurs 154.2 million. Sunderland then with a net spend of 141.4 million. And then teams down the lower end of the table, of the net spend table, Villa made a profit of 15 million. Palace made a profit of 17 million. Chelsea made a profit of about 18 million. Brentford made a profit of 60 million. Brighton made a profit of 60 million. And Bournemouth, who currently sit in second place, made a profit of nearly £66 million. And of course, yes, I did forget Costas as well. I didn't forget Harvey May. He was one of the first ones I said. But Costas I did forget. Yeah, he's over at Roma. Billy said, you must have a big garden, mate. No, I don't. That's pretty much my garden that you see in that picture. I live in a council house, mate. No big gardens here. There is a deck area outside the door that you can't see in that picture, which is probably 10 foot by 20 foot or something. But yeah, that's the old garden. But it's a really proud day. We've been trying to do this for 5-6 years now, and to get there, it's only thanks to you and your support. Leona, how are we, Leona? Said, it's so degrading, Slot doesn't even know his best 11. Where do you go from here? Much love to you and the family. Hopefully upwards, Leona, hopefully upwards. Hopefully we start turning this around. Because, despite all the frustration and annoyance and anger, like I keep saying, we all want this to work. And one thing that we can say today is Liverpool, according to reports, have stalled contract negotiations with Arna. Let me just get some of these quotes. So, Footy Insider said contract talks with Arne Slot have now been put on hold by Liverpool. There's also a Graham Bailey report that said Mohamed Salah's potential switch to the Saudi Pro League is still very much alive. He's being offered a staggering £150 million per year, a package that would see him named a tourism ambassador and granted the option of a partial club ownership in the future. Salah remains the league's top priority, and the player himself is understood to be open to the idea of playing in the Middle East at some point in his career. Thoughts on that one? Honestly, and I've said this a few times now, when he signed that new 2-year deal, same with Virgil, my expectation was that they see out those 2 years, both of them, and who knows what happens after that. So, others felt that maybe Liverpool, if it wasn't working out, would sell Mo after 1 year. I truly never, ever believed that. So I don't know what to make of these type of reports because I don't know where they're sourced or, who's pushing that narrative. Does it surprise me that Saudi would still want Mo to go there? No, of course not. But it also would surprise me if he suddenly feels like the unfinished business that he has in England is now finished. So, don't really know what to make of it, in all honesty. So I'm just deleting a comment from one of these whole "You'll Never Walk Alone" merchants that thinks that because we sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" that everything is excused after that. Anybody who wants to come in with that or wants the old "if you can't support us when we lose, don't support us when we win" shit, just leave because it's lazy bullshit. And like I said, I love my children, but I'm not going to just accept anything from my children throughout their life. So this "You'll Never Walk Alone" stuff, it's just another stick used to beat Liverpool fans with, let's be honest. Because nobody is going to become the most successful club in England without standards and without those standards being met. So anybody who's trying to use the "You'll Never Walk Alone" stuff, it's just it's so lazy and tiring to just have to deal with it. And again, there's about 15 misspellings in there, which there always is from these type of people. And by that I mean trolling. There's a mad correlation between people who are trolling and people who are thick as pig shit. It genuinely makes me laugh. Graham Russell said, all the best for Mo. He's clearly already thinking about the money. He's won everything already. I think he misses Klopp and Jota. Look, I don't know. I don't want to put words in Mo's mouth. I don't want to think about Mo in, wanting away or not, because Mo could have gone, but he wanted to stay. Signed the deal, wanted to stay. So in my mind, Mo still wants to win stuff here with Liverpool. That's where my head's at with it. If he does go, look, same as anybody else, it's his career, it's his life. He's every right to choose his own path forward, and will only ever be looked at from me as a legend of the football club. But I don't want a saga for anyone again. I just want honesty. Michael Hanley said, it's like some fans can't accept that fans like us have standards and want to win and not lose 6 out of 7 league games. It's so annoying when they try to blame it on the fans like us. It's ridiculous, mate, because they're making out like we're doing this after one loss. You know? Like 6 losses in 7. And my counterpoint back is, any other fan base, we'd be pointing at them saying, have you no standards? Like, remember before United beat us, there was talk of Amram going again. There was, this is a huge game for him. Has he lost the dressing room? And he's above us in the table. And all of a sudden, our standards are out the window. And some fans just think, if you're in any way critical, that that's not supporting the club. No, it's demanding more from a club that has set the standards over the years to become the most successful team in English football history. So we either have a standard as a football club or we don't. There are always extenuating circumstances, and we do give managers time. That is very much true. But you need to see a change. You need to see something, a spark, something. So I would say, if you blindly follow anything in life, it's a slippery slope, because nothing deserves your unadulterated support. Nothing. Because then that support will be abused. Brad. Okay, so question for you, Craig, and the whole community. If Arna was to beat Villa, Madrid and City, and then the next two, would you be satisfied or expect more? So if he beat all them, and you said, did you mean lost the next two? I think there's a part missing from your comment, Brad. So I'll answer it both ways for you, to be fair. So if he wins these next 3 games, mate, pressure's off. For me, immediately pressure's off. No matter what happens in the next couple after that, if he wins the next 3 games, that's it. We've seen a turnaround. Every football team are going to lose games of football. I'm not sitting here thinking we have to go through and win every game. But if you win these 3, you'd have to say something's going in the right direction then, unless we go very, very, very lucky. So again, it needs context, but if he wins these next 3 games, definitely in me it releases the pressure valve a bit and gives him more time. That can only speak for me, like I said, but 3 wins will definitely make me a happier fan. What happens after that? Again, it needs context of the situation and where we are in the league and in the Champions League and stuff like that. But yeah, man, 3 wins this week, and yeah, I'll be a happy camper going into that international break based off what we've seen up to now. Paul Owen said, we have to set standards. We're the best team in English football. How can we how can't we moan as fans been following teams in 77? Exactly. And we keep hearing about the standards and what it means to play for this football club and what the weight of the jersey represents and all of this stuff until it doesn't suit the narrative. When things are great, everyone's great at praising everybody and telling us all that the badge is amazing, the club is amazing, the players are amazing, the fans are amazing, everything's amazing. And then when the same people that are so used to being praised get some criticism, it becomes hate very quickly. Because how dare you? Nobody should blindly support anything. You don't blindly support your kids. If your kids do something wrong, you let them know they've done something wrong. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you don't want them to go on and have a great and fulfilling life. But sometimes stuff needs to be said, and sometimes hard truths need to be spoken. Whether you do that inside a dressing room or not, it needs to be done. How can Liverpool be the biggest without a treble? In what world does that set anything, though? So you're saying to me, if Leicester City won a treble and nothing else in their history, that makes them a bigger club? Liverpool are the biggest because they've won the most trophies. It's a really simple thing to figure out. Like, we've won the most trophies. That's how they're the biggest. It's really straightforward, mate. So I'm guessing you're a United fan who's going to say you haven't won the treble. Well, you haven't won a quadruple, so how dare you call yourself the biggest? Michael said, I think we've signed too many players as much as I love the window. Too many big names and not a rebuild in the defence. And of course, Leone had a very unfortunate injury, but that's just my opinion. Look, there were people, mate, that were saying that in the summer, Michael, and you may well have been one of them, sir, that said a lot of changes, maybe too much. I have to say, I was somebody that said no, I don't think it was. And even when I look at the starting 11s now, I don't see too much there change-wise. Gakpo was here last season, Salah was here last season, Kanade and Virgil, Alisson here last season, Soboslai here last season, Gravenberch here last season, Robbo, if he plays, was here last season. So I think we're talking about 3 starting positions maybe. Now, there's a lack of competition there, particularly on the left between Diaz and Gakpo. That's fair enough. But yeah, that was my thinking of not saying I don't think it's been too much. But most importantly, Michael, what I'd say to you is I don't think the changes are to blame for what we've seen. I think that falls on the manager's shoulders, personally. Mario said, for me, if Arnold loses to Villa, I'm done, no matter what he does against Madrid and City. Giant Gifts said, I agreed with Slot prioritising the league and Europa, or in Europe with the rest and training. Liverpool do have injuries, though. I would have rested Robertson and played Wirtz. So on the injuries thing, we run through the numbers on this. We've had no harder an issue with injuries than anyone else. In fact, we're middle of the road. Spurs have had the most days lost from injuries this season. Sunderland are next, then Chelsea, Palace, Brighton, Man City, Arsenal, Burnley, Liverpool. So, and I get what you say, maybe at this particular moment we have a few more injured, but even at that, the anger that we were seeing last night from people wasn't about the starting 11. Everybody expects a very mixed, youthful starting 11. It was about the bench, Giant Gifts, mate, that we were seeing the problem last night because there was no option there to save it. And you know, he'll know roughly who's going to be in the starting 11 at the weekend. You'd mean to say a couple of those subs couldn't have maybe been given some time there. You couldn't have had Wirtz there, maybe Soboslai on the bench to change it up a little bit. You know, so that's where I think a lot of frustration pens from you. And the prioritising thing, I'm going to come back again to what we were told in the summer, which is that we were building a team to compete across all competitions, a team that wouldn't have another Plymouth Argyle situation. And then at the very first sign of things going a bit wrong, revisionism sets in, and all of a sudden that wasn't the aim. So, yeah, that's my point on it. Regis said, Craig, I've been watching your show for 2 years, and ever since then, whenever I go on YouTube, I immediately go on your channel. Mate, that means a lot. Thank you. I mean, yeah, I really appreciate that support, mate. Thank you so much. And I also love your name, Regis. It's a really cool name. Metallica fan said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to take that back down so quick. I'm done with Slot. I'd get rid now. Look, I respect your opinion, same as I respect others' opinions on it. I'm not quite there yet myself, mate. As I've said, these next 3 games are going to go a long way for me in making up my mind. But let's check in on our poll. So we've had over 1,650 votes, and we've asked you, what would it take for you to fire Arne Slot? I'm already there now. He has the entire season, a few more losses, or you're unsure. And we'll revisit that just before we finish up. Do give me a nudge to make sure I don't forget about it. But I want to leave it go as long as I can because I want to see exactly where people are at with it. For me, I'm in the he needs to win 2 of the next 3. If he wins 1 and draws 1, I'd probably be all right with that as well, to be honest. But if he loses 2 of the next 3, yeah, for me it's bye-bye time because it's then a pattern over a longer period. You know, you'd be talking about maybe then, 8 losses from 10, something like that. Not good enough. James said, this is long therapy. So, yeah, so I often get people, James, come in and say, stick to the football stuff or whatever. And it does make me think at times, mate, you know, should I do that more? Because I think of this as not therapy, but I think of this as a friend's chat where, yeah, we talk about footy, but we can equally have a tangent where we talk about films, takeaways, life, mental health. And for me, it's really important that we do those things because I think it's what has bonded us as a community. Because I've said this so many times, I watch other content creators go and do their stuff and they mainly just, have their say for their time on the camera and then head off. I couldn't do that because, one, I'm not talented enough to be able to have a big monologue that you would go for that length of time. I need that interaction, and I need to bounce off people. But I also want to get to know you, and I want to feel that sense of belonging that I was lacking before I started this in my own journey in life. And this community to me is way beyond football. Football was the thing that opened the door. After this, my life's been blessed by your hearts, your kindness, and your empathy as human beings to each other. So if ever it does get too into the realms of not enough footy ship, don't ever hesitate to let me know, and we can try to alter that as much as we can. It's something I've always struggled with here on the channel because I know it's a Liverpool Football Club channel, but to me, it's also a personal thing, which is why we have different types of content. We do the 8-minute videos for people who just want nothing but football talk. We do that. We do the clips as well. And then we have the longer form content here that is solely interactive. Bring in Zidane, said Chill Edits. So, mate, for me, I would strongly disagree for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't speak English, which, I think is important. And also, culturally, he's just not a Liverpool manager. As a manager, he's achieved a lot. As a player, my goodness, he achieved a lot. I'm one of the best to do it. I just really, really, really do not think he is the man to spearhead or be the figurehead of our club. I just don't think he's a cultural fit. Paul Owen said, absolutely, Craig, mate. We all need to chat about everything. Oh, well, I definitely do. I definitely do, mate. Yeah, and look, I say this as somebody who goes to therapy as well. Grim Reaper said, Craig, here's $1 million question for you. Right, well, I want the £1,000,000 when I answer it. Would you rather watch us play like this for the rest of the season or eat another piece of broccoli to fix it all? Obviously, I'd eat the broccoli, dude. I'd take one for the team in that regard. Tyrant Eatmo said, Craig, thoughts on the attackers you're going to face in the next few weeks, especially with the current defence? I mean, Villa are a well-coached, well-drilled team. So, without looking at individuals, that's one where we're going to have to just match their effort and intensity. And obviously, the manager's going to have to match Unai Emery for his tactics. Real Madrid's forwards, you either look at that game and you think it's a daunting one, or you lick your lips as a player and think, let's get stuck in. If we see a Conor Bradley moment out there where he crunches into an Mbappe challenge and the crowd lifts up, that can be a difference maker. So these games can either act as a huge motivator to the unit to be better, to work harder, to run harder, or it can be a waving of the white flag. Now, this group have never been people to just give up. So I'm expecting a reaction. But yeah, look, it's going to be tough. And then when you go to Manchester City, they're a little bit shaky this season as well. Same as us. They haven't exactly been at their best. But it's always a difficult trip there. And Haaland must be fancying the chances of having a go at that defence. So, yeah, be alive as I'm not worried about it. But I'm equally adamant that if we show up and play to our abilities, then they should be just as worried about us. But defending also needs to start from the front and not just from the back four. Would you take Nuno from Forest? No, I wouldn't. Personally, Jason, no. That Madrid team had leaders all over the pitch, the likes of Ramos, Ronaldo, Cruz. Can't imagine Zidane had to do or say much. That's a good point, one that I never really thought of, to be honest. Right, did I do this one? This one from Liam. Said, nice studio. I struggled for years. Finally at 40. All great. Wife, kids home. High on life. Great channel. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I'm glad to hear. Doing well, Liam. And much love to you and the family. The real Johnny Sin said, if you're first, you're first. If you're second, you're nothing. Why don't those Beta Boy Cook fans take that quote from Shankly too? Can't stand them. Because it doesn't make them feel morally superior. And that's all that's about, dude. When people come in with that, if you can't support us when we lose, don't support us when we win stuff, it is just about trying to feel morally superior to somebody else. End of. Which is why I get so wound up by them. Because like you, apart from the beta shit, which, by the way, I also agree with, it's just trying to shit on other people. Metallica fan said, Craig, I only found your channel in 2025. My brother recommended it and I love it. Thanks so much. Well, thank you to you, and of course thank you to your bro as well. Do give him a handshake for me and say thank you. And I'm glad you're enjoying it, mate. Thank you. And long may that continue. Saunders said King Carlo could sort it out. So yeah, look, Carlo Ancelotti has more than enough gravitas to step into any dressing room anywhere in the world and command respect. I would look at that as a short-term thing, although I'm not saying it is going to be a thing, but I can't imagine that being a project with Ancelotti, if you get me, more of a steady the ship kind of thing. So I don't think longer term that will be the option. And we tried to discuss it on the podcast earlier on, and we really just couldn't come up with names that we think would be a good fit. Or maybe we're at a point where the managerial world is shifting a bit. You know, for the first time in probably 12 to 15 years, we're seeing football go away from Pep Guardiola's impact and influence over it. And it's kind of going back to this season of the Premier League in particular, a more direct set piece type of game. So it's hard to know what managerial trends are coming as well along the line, and who would be that next guy, because, you know, you've got Klopp towards the latter part of his career, if not finished. Guardiola will probably have a break from football as well at some point. And Ancelotti at the end of his, you know, a very, very trophy-laden career as a player and a coach. So there's also that, as in, like, where are the great managers around the world at the minute? And you know, do we have a chance to get them in? So Steven Gerrard's an interesting one, right? Because I don't want Steven Gerrard managing this team at the minute. But I tell you what, I wouldn't say no to Klopp putting him on the coaching squad. You know, I think he could do a lot worse than bringing in somebody like Gerrard, who, one, understands what it means to wear the shirt, and I'm not saying Arnold doesn't, but I mean, you can get that across to the players, would absolutely command the respect of any dressing room he walked into, and could just be a good addition to Arna's backroom staff, and Steven Gerrard could learn there until his own return to management in the future. I wouldn't rule that out for 1 second, but I wouldn't be bringing him in to be the head coach now. Joe said Iriola. I totally understand Iriola as a shout, but it's another risk, right? It is, whatever way we dress it up. But it could be a worthwhile risk, and I'm not saying it isn't, but, you know, it's not somebody where you'd say the name and everybody would go, yeah, that's the guy. You can understand the suggestion, of course, because I've watched him from when he was at Rayo Vallecano, or excuse me, not Rayo Vallecano. Was it Rayo Vallecano? It was Vallecano, wasn't it? The white with the... Anyway, watched his football from there. As he then came into Bournemouth, a Bournemouth team that has been absolutely rinsed of great players. And his style of football is cool, and it's fun to watch. But, you know, you come back to that kind of Brendan Rodgers-y type thing again. Is it too soon for Iriola to make that step up into a club like Liverpool? Because it is a big step with, you know, real scrutiny and expectation. So, look, it's a decent shout, though. I'm sure he's a name that would be looked at, and I'm sure, you know, Chelsea are looking at him as well, apparently. Paul Beer said Glasner if Slot cannot do the job. Another really interesting show. Glasner obviously is a Europa League winner with Eintracht Frankfurt. Has absolutely got our number at the minute. You know, 3 victories over us in a row. And but again, I don't know would his style of football translate into the squad that we have. But he definitely knows what he's doing as a coach. And another one somebody mentioned was Eddie Howe. And of course, Eddie Howe would... Look, I'm not trying to annoy Newcastle fans again, but the only downside to me about talking about Eddie Howe would be Tyndall. Having to look at Tyndall. But look, Eddie Howe's a great coach and seemingly a very good manager as well, by the looks of it. Where was this one? Craig, to pick up your idea, when Gerrard comes in, do you think he would be Slot's shadow coach? Look, you can look at it any which way you want. You could have 2 number 2s there alongside Van Bronckhorst. He could, you know, he could learn as well. Is what I'm saying. Like it could be a win-win for everybody there. While Gerrard's not got a job at the minute. But what you would want from him is, of course, a guarantee that you will see out the season, because you don't want then Gerrard coming in, Liverpool starting to do well, and then a job coming that takes him back out from to go somewhere else. You'd want the season. But look, as I said, I'm sure he'd have a lot to give, but I wouldn't be ready for him as a head coach yet. David Rusco said, irrespective of which players are in the 11 shirts on the pitch, under slot, we play slower and don't follow the long-held Liverpool way of pass and move. We are slow and lack aggression. I don't disagree with that, David. And even based off, last year, things are very different. Graham Russell said, it's a pity Martin O'Neill didn't get a shot in his managerial career. He's always got his best, he's always gave his best and got results. Look, I've always liked Martin O'Neill for obvious reasons. He managed Ireland as well. Always comes across like a good man. But again, he's 75 now. Saunders said, Craig, you run a great channel. Thank you. It's a pleasure, man. Honestly, love what I get to do every day. Dershlim said, hey Craig, thanks for everything, mate. You're a legend. I love your honesty. Question, would you take Zeljko Buvac? No, because I put Buvac into the category like a Pep Linders. I don't think they're ever going to make it as a head coach. Brilliant number twos, but I don't think he's going to make it as a head coach. So no, I wouldn't take him because for that reason. Not because I don't think he's a good coach, but I just don't think he's a number one guy. Sean Maguire said, Craig, I think this could either be a really good one season wonder or it just got cocky and does know how to manage the new team and his players. What do you think? Well, he won a league with Feyenoord, so up against two clubs with a bigger budget in PSV and Ajax. Won a league with Liverpool when he first came in, so he obviously knows what he's about. But this is the first big test in his whole managerial career, because he never lost this many games anywhere. I don't think he'd even lost 3 in a row up to this point. So, big test for Arne. We all want him to work through it, but, we need to see signs of that happening. The real Johnny Sin said, Craig, can you explain the Zidane wrong culture bit? He's arrogant. And Liverpool isn't about arrogance. And he's just, I've always said the same about Jose Mourinho. I don't think Jose Mourinho was a Liverpool manager. I actually don't think he was a Manchester United manager either. I still don't understand that they went that way. That's what I mean. It's just not the right cultural fit for us. It just, I don't think he'd resonate with the city and the fan base. Andrew Review said, Craig, I love your channel and honestly, everything I aspire to. But I hope you get there, mate. Honestly, I don't know how I got here. I always say this. A bit of luck, a bit of consistency, a bit of hard work, but I wish you all the best on your journey if you try to do it as well. What I will say to you is, and I probably should have listened to this more from people, don't go back and read comments when your streams are over and your videos are over, because if you're insecure like I am, there can be some stuff in there that really just takes the mood down. As much as I want to read every comment that's posted on stuff, sometimes it can be difficult. So I've had to take steps over the years to protect myself, because I'm very open on here, as I'm sure you're aware. But I don't deal with the emails anymore, and I just had to put some barriers there to protect myself. But that's the only bit of advice I give you, is just enjoy it, be yourself, and don't let anybody change your persona. Be you. Darwizzy said, Nagelsmann as a Liverpool manager because he can get the best out of Wirtz. Nagelsmann was always an interesting name to Liverpool. He's in the Germany job at the minute, so you can probably rule that one out. But he's always been somebody who's been admired by Liverpool. IFI Must said, Craig, with the footy heading back to some old school tactics, what do you think about Big Sam getting a crack in the Liverpool hot seat? That'll be a no. No, he can stick to the Just Eat ads or Uber Eats or whatever ads. Just Eat ads, isn't it? That he's doing with Pardew and Pulis. Yeah, they stick to those. I think some forget that there was an overhaul in the backroom staff as well as players leaving, but I'm like yourself, he has the next 3 games to fix it. Well, we did, Dylan, try to address the situation with Johnny hiding it. I talked about it on the podcast today with the 2 boys, and I spoke about it at the start as well, and I wonder if I, and I can only speak for me, I think I probably underestimated that side of things and some of the change there. I know there's change in the goalkeeping department as well. I think the set piece department, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it all plays into it, Dylan. Absolutely, mate. And when you put it all together, we are where we are. Right, ladies and gents, a couple more comments and then I'm going to say goodnight because the preview for the Villa game is coming out in 13 minutes. I do hope you have a watch of it. Let me just check the poll because I don't want to forget it. So we've had over 2,000 votes and these are the results of what we've said is... if you were in charge, when would you fire Slot, basically? And the results are a few more losses is the most voted for answer with 41%. I'm already there now with 31% is in second place. He has the entire season is 19% and unsure is 9%. So between a few more losses and I'm already there now, you've got 72% of people that are close or are already there as fans. So... I appreciate all of you taking the time to vote. And of course, this isn't a scientific experiment. This is just a straw poll of fans' opinions at this moment in time. But yeah, I appreciate all of you taking the time to answer. I don't know who voted what, but for me, I'm at he has a few more games. But again, I want to reiterate, I want him to succeed. I want him to turn it round. I just don't want to hear these paltry excuses that he comes out with after games because it's just nonsensical in my mind. So look, appreciate you. Podcast went out earlier on. If you have a chance, have a listen to it. It's on Spotify and it's on YouTube. The preview is coming out in about 10 minutes time. And I'll see you tomorrow. Same time and same place. Always appreciate your time and your support. Thank you so much. Much love to all of you. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.